Hi, I'm Steve Miletto from the Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode number 147 of the House of EdTech, it's my last episode of the decade, the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Happy holidays. Merry New Year, everybody. We are here. The Smackdown is here. And before we jump right into what is going to be 27 year-ending recommendations. Actually, hold on, let me stop there. 27 decade-ending recommendations. I have two quick announcements. So, first and foremost, the other podcast that I host, Podcast PD, I talk about it from time to time here on this one. Podcast PD, we are in the middle of our 12 days of Podcast PD, and we are releasing a short episode each day from December 25th through January 5th, with a podcast recommendation that Stacy, AJ, and I think you will get a lot of value from. If you are interested, go to podcastpd.com/go, that's G-O, and that'll make sure that you are getting the awesome content that AJ, Stacy, and I are putting out through Podcast PD. As I record this, we are just a few days into Podcast PD's 12 Days of Podcast PD 2019, so we hope you'll join us, and if you're not regularly listening to that show, what are you doing? I hope you go to podcastpd.com/go. Now, normally I talk about upcoming episodes at the end of the episode, but I want to get you more involved. So I want to talk about two upcoming episodes that I'm planning for early in 2020. The first is episode 148, and that is going to come your way on January 12th, 2020. And I will be talking about education technology that you have to try in 2020. So again, in this episode, I'm about to drop a whole bunch of recommendations on you from across the House of EdTech community, but I've got my thoughts, and I would love to get your thoughts about what teachers should be trying in EdTech in 2020. So let me know if you have something you want people to try in 2020. There's no time like the present, so let's talk about an episode that's coming in the future. Go to chrisnessie.com/feedback and do that by January 10th, 2020 to share something and why people should try something in education technology in 2020. Also, coming up on episode 149, I alluded to this a little bit in episode 146, but I'm going to be planning an episode all about TikTok in education. If you've got an opinion or a question about TikTok in education, I want you to send those to me as well. Episode 149 is going to get released on January 26th, 2020, so please get me your thoughts any way you'd like by January 24th of 2020. Now, if you want to go back and do this as a beverage consumption game, you have a sip every time I said 2020 in the last, 4 minutes. But anyway, so that's a couple of upcoming episodes and some opportunities for you to get involved here with the podcast in 2020. Drink up. But now let's get right into, because we've got a lot to cover today. Let's get into the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown. All right, here we are. 2019 is coming to a close. The decade is coming to a close, and it's time for the Smackdown. Let's just jump right into it. And our first installation, I don't even know what that is. Our first recommendation comes from Tim Needles. Tim is at Tim Needles on Twitter. That's TimNeedles. Make sure you connect with Tim, and let's hear what Tim has to say.
Hey Chris, this is Tim Needles from Smithtown, New York, out on Long Island, and my favorite new piece of EdTech is probably the Morphe app, which we've used in the past, but thanks to a new update, they have a number of new augmented reality features that include video and different textures. So it's a lot more versatile than it used to be. All of augmented reality is kind of expanding, so it's really interesting to see where it's going, and I try to implement it in class in new and innovative ways. Looking forward to hearing more in the podcast. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for jumping in there, Tim. Again, connect with Tim on Twitter. His Twitter handle will be in the show notes. And thank you for recommending the Morphe app, which you can go and find at morpheapp.com, morphiapp.com. And that is not the first we're going to hear about augmented reality and virtual reality, because now I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Howell, previous guest of the podcast. She is at Mrs. Howell 24 on Twitter. And take it away, Stephanie.
Hey, Chris, it's Stephanie Howe here from Pickerington, Ohio. My EdTech Smackdown for 2019 tip is using virtual reality in the classroom. You can take students anywhere in the world with virtual reality. And two websites that can really help you do this is 360 Cities and Google Expeditions. And students can pretty much go anywhere in the world, and they can make connections with the content that they're learning. We've used this in ELA. Students are reading a book, and they can actually go to the place that they're reading about and really see and visualize what it looks like and what the author's talking about. We've also used it in, science, where students can go to outer space, and in social studies, where students can see different places that they're learning about. There's also a really cool app called Google Tour Creator, where students can create their own virtual reality and then view them in the VR goggles. I've got a website, and I'll send an email to you, and hopefully you can include that into the show notes that our district has created to help teachers with virtual reality.
Thank you, Stephanie. And yes, I got that email. And yes, everybody can go to chrisnessy.com/147, or you can go to chrisnessy.com/smackdown2019 for the show notes for this episode. And everything that gets shared and recommended is going to be out at the blog post for this episode. So if you hear something and you're in the car, on the treadmill, don't have a pen, fear not. Just go to chrisnessy.com/147 and you can get links to everything that we're sharing. Next up is me. And I've got 5 recommendations that I'm going to share in this episode. And the first one is htmltidy.net. htmltidy.net is an online markup corrector. HTML-Tidy is a web browser app whose purpose is to fix invalid code, HTML code. It beautifies the layout and the formatting of incorrect markup, and the interface is composed of 2 editors where you can edit your content in a linked visual and source editor. The 2 fields are displayed side by side, giving you full control and flexibility in the HTML editing process. I recently came across this site, and it was pretty valuable to me, as I recently updated the Education Podcast Network website, which I use Blogger to build. And if you go to edupodcastnetwork.com, you don't see what looks like a Blogger blog. You see what looks like a website. And I am not well versed in HTML, spoiler, but I know how to manipulate code once I can decipher it. And htmltidy.net helped me clean up a lot of the code that I guess was not, I don't want to say outdated, but it helped me clean up the code with a new template and the design and the refresh and everything like that. So if you are into HTML, or your students are looking for a tool to better write their HTML code, then I would consider htmltidy.net. Next up, we have the first of a few recommendations from Nate Nagel. So take it away, Nate.
Hey, Chris, this is Nathan Nagel, and I am a teacher outside of Washington, D.C. I teach technology education, and I want to share a couple of tools I use for your EdTech Smackdown. I'm going to share a lot, so I apologize about that. But first off, I'm going to go with 2 paid things that I use almost every day, and they make my life significantly easier. The first one is Camtasia. It works on both Mac and PC, and it's a screen recording software, but it's also an editing software. And it allows me to make screen tutorials and a whole bunch of stuff very quickly, very easily. I can even make animated GIFs out of it and a whole bunch of other things and really improve the production of my class and really make things look professional, clean, and very easy. The second thing is from the same company, TechSmith. It's called Snagit. Snagit is a screen capture tool, and basically it allows you to edit it after the fact. So you can add on borders to kind of make it look jagged. You can add on numbers. You can add on arrows, all kinds of cool stuff. And the newest update also allows you to go through and create PDF step by steps. So you can take the screenshots, add a whole bunch of them together in a pre-formatted template, and then add on your directions. It's really useful for staff, students, and pretty much anybody. All this stuff has educator discounts. Like Snagit cost me $7 a year to use and is worth every single penny. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Nate. And we are going to come back to Nate in a little bit, but also make sure if you're not connected with Mr. Nagel, make sure you connect with him on Twitter. He is at Mr. Nagel, Nagele. And he's got some other great recommendations coming up later in this episode. But for now, let me turn it over to my podcast PD compadre, AJ Bianco. Take it away, buddy.
Hey, House of EdTech, what's going on? AJ Bianco from Podcast PD coming at you with this year's 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown recommendation, and I'm going to recommend for you Soundtrap. Now, I've talked about Soundtrap before, and I'm sure you've heard of it before, but this is a wonderful tool that I think we can start using in our classrooms to really get our kids sharing their voice, and for teachers to be a little brave and bold and go above and beyond. Soundtrap, for those who don't know, is a online recording studio. You can record music, you can record podcasts. It has instruments, it has music for loops and backgrounds, whatever you want to do. This is a great tool if you want to do a voiceover for a video, or if you're looking to make a podcast, or if you're out there doing music and you want to have music to whatever lesson you're doing. This is great. You can collaborate and share with other people, so you can be doing two things at once. It's kind of like a Google Doc in that way. I really love it because it's all over your devices. You can do it on your tablets, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on your desktops, wherever you need it. It's great. You can actually have a school account, so if you want to do it through your school and your school is willing to pay for it, I think that's a great way to get teachers involved. Otherwise, you can do it for free with a limited access. You get 5 recordings for your own access if you want to do it that way. I really like the fact you can record on the go. So if you're sitting in your car and you got something you want to say or record, you can start your podcast right there. And honestly, Soundtrap is super, super easy. I really think you'll enjoy this tool. Get out there. As Chris likes to say, just press record and start with Soundtrap. I'm using it right now for this. Thanks for listening. Catch me on Podcast PD. And you can reach me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at AJ Bianco. Have a great New Year, everybody.
Thanks a lot, buddy. I really appreciate you taking time to send that in. And yeah, Soundtrap is something you and I have been playing with for a couple of years, and you are well versed in it. And there you go, demoing the tool to submit the tool. I really like that. And yeah, as I do like to say, just hit record. If you have considered creating a podcast, I want you to make 2020 the year you do that. I've put out a number of episodes in the last couple of years about creating podcast content, whether you want to do it with your students or you are just curious to do this for yourself, whether it's about education or, as Stacy and I like to talk about, duct tape wallet making. Yes, it is a podcast. But whatever you're passionate about, I want you to take that plunge and just hit record. Now, if you want to be inspired and look good while you're doing it, I have created I guess some swag or some merch around this just record idea. So if you go to chrisnessy.com/just hit record, and you have to spell record out, you can get stickers, magnets, t-shirts, sweatshirts, the whole thing. And maybe if you wear something, you'll be inspired to just hit record. So thanks, AJ. And I'm going to put it out there because then it's out there publicly. But AJ and I have been talking about AJ starting a podcast. So you who is listening to this, go tag him on Twitter at AJ Bianco, and let's put a little pressure on AJ to start his podcast, because I'm tired of people talking about doing it and not doing it. So let's help AJ out. Next up, we have Stella Pollard. And real quick, awesome Stella Pollard story. Stella has been a fan of this podcast for many years, I'll say. And she's always responding to tweets on Twitter. She's, sent feedback in over the years. And I finally had the opportunity in 2019 at ISTE in Philly to finally meet Stella Pollard and, give Stella a hug and, have her talk to her. It was just great to finally meet Stella, who has been such a big fan and a big supporter of the House of EdTech. And she has not disappointed because I believe Stella has, 5 submissions for this year's Smackdown. So, Stella, let's hear your first recommendation.
Hi, Chris and House of EdTech listeners. I'm Stella Pollard, and you can find me on Twitter at Stella_Pollard. I'm from Kentucky, and I'm an instructional technology coordinator, and I wanted to leave a House of EdTech recommendation. So, I have fallen in love with Microsoft's Immersive Reader, and our district is a complete Chromebook district. We only use Chromebooks. So at first I was a little blown because I was like, oh, this is an amazing tool, and my students, I really want them to be able to use it, but I didn't think it was possible. There is a Google Chrome extension called OneNote Web Clipper, and if your district has purchased the Microsoft license, then they have a OneNote account. So they can download that extension and they can use the Microsoft Immersive Reader. And if you're unfamiliar with Immersive Reader, it allows the students to take text from anywhere, and it can space those texts out. It can highlight nouns and adjectives, all of those things. It can translate it to different languages, and you can have it read in a female or male's voice, and you can speed up or slow down the text. It also has a picture dictionary to help ESL learners and students who are just learning how to read. So I really recommend the OneNote Web Clipper extension, and I love the House of EdTech. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you again, Stella. And we're going to hear from Stella a few more times here in this episode. But next up, we have Sam Fessich, Dr. Sam Fessich of EduMagic fame and fortune. Make sure, if you haven't listened to the episode where I had Sam on the podcast, that you go and check her episode out. And if you're not subscribed to the EduMagic podcast, maybe check that out, because it is a good podcast designed for pre-service and novice educators. So if there's somebody like that in your life, definitely send them to Sam Fessich. But Sam, what do you want to recommend?
Hey friends, it is Sam Fessich, host of the EduMagic podcast and author of the book EduMagic and EduMagic Shine On. One of my favorite tech tools for 2019 would have to be, hands down, Adobe Spark. I love Adobe Spark. I love that it is an app and it's a website. I can use it across platform. I can create lots of different content for my students to engage in, and my students can use it to create content for themselves. For example, I've used it to create QR code scavenger hunts. I've used Adobe Spark to create videos and social media posts. I've used it to create book study templates and lots of different things for my own podcast, such as graphics and some different ways to push it out there on social media. Adobe Spark is simple, easy to use, and so much fun. I love that it can be used for lots of different subject areas, content areas. Yeah, it's a lot of fun and it's free. So head on over to Adobe Spark and you can start creating your own post, page, or video today. Have a great day, everyone, and I wish you a very happy holiday.
Thank you so much, Sam. And Sam does have another recommendation coming up a little bit later in this episode. Next up, we have one from me. So another one that I want to recommend to you, and I've really been having some fun with this. Not putting content out yet, but that is coming as I've been playing with this tool. It is called Kapwing, Kapwing. And Kapwing.com, Kapwing, is an online video, image, and GIF editor. Yes, I say GIF. If you say otherwise, let's go find a bike rack. It is incredibly simple to use. It's an excellent tool for both teachers and students who are looking to trim videos, add subtitles, create memes, or any other type of simple video production activity. The free version of Kapwing includes all the features, and finished products just contain a small watermark. Another great quote unquote selling point is you don't even need an account to use Capwing. So if you've got small, quick video projects, or you want to get your students using a tool where they can make their own GIFs or make memes and just maybe have some fun and also promote some digital citizenship and get them creating, go check out capwing.com. Again, that's KAPWING. And next up, we have Angela Bine. So take it away, Angela.
Hey, Chris. This is Angela Bine, English teacher from Northwest Indiana. I like to package classroom activities in Google Slides because it is easy for students to add text, images, and videos all in one place. But my tip is for teachers to put the assignment directions in the master slides. If you click Slide, then Edit Master, you open the master slides window. I put a table on the left, normally 1 column by 2 rows, to put the directions in. In the top row, I write the word directions, and in the bottom row, I type out the directions. Normally, I number the steps and include on which slides each activity will be completed. When students view the slides in the regular view, the directions stick and cannot be accidentally deleted. This has stopped students from asking me to repeat directions because they appear on every slide on the edge of the slide. I hope this tip helps. Have a great day.
Angela, thanks for submitting your tip. And that is not the only tip you're going to get. We have some other people coming up who not so much recommending apps or tools, but giving some advice on how to use them more efficiently. And I love the idea of the master slide and everything that you just shared, Angela. Thank you so much for doing that. Next up, we're going back to Stella Pollard for her second recommendation. Take it away, Stella.
Hey, Chris and House of EdTech listeners. It's Stella Pollard from Kentucky calling in with another EdTech recommendation. I wanted to recommend Screencastify. Screencastify is my favorite Google Chrome extension ever because it allows users to share their screen and record their voices at the same time. And you can also use it just to record like a web camera. I think it's the perfect tool for teachers who are wanting to do mini lessons for their students to listen to and watch, whether they're on the go or the teacher is wanting to do kind of like station work with other students. I think it's also useful to have students to create their own videos so they can apply what they have learned in creative ways, such as presentations, mock newscasts, GIFs, and much more. The videos are saved to either Google Drive or YouTube at the user's discretion. I find that using video is super important because it gives students the opportunity to embrace the power of pause and listen to the directions, lessons, or whatever it is that they're watching however many times that they need. This tool is something that the students can use now and later in their life as well. I love seeing teachers use Screencastify to leave feedback for their students instead of leaving multiple comments. I think it's just so much more personable, it's easy to use, and time effective for both the teachers and the students. Screencastify allows users to get 50 free 10-minute videos per month. 50 10-minute videos. That's a lot. And if you do decide to use their premium subscription, it's only $29 per year. Thanks.
Thank you, Stella. I love Screencastify. I should really do more with it. I know it's so powerful and it's so easy to use, but I really have to find the time and the appropriate content that people would find valuable. Actually, let me ask, what do you think I should be making screencast videos for? I mean, I have used it in class and I've recorded things for my students, but is there anything that I could teach you that would be worthwhile? Should I be making some podcast tutorial videos, whether it's Audacity or how I do certain things with podcasting or how I do things in Google Docs or Drive? If you would like to see me create content about that type of stuff, please let me know. Leave a comment in the show notes, tag me on Twitter. I would love to want to know if you want me to make more content in addition to the podcast. But let's keep moving. We have a lot to get through and we're going to embark on our 11th recommendation of the episode. So we're going back to Nate Nagel. Go ahead, Nate. What do you got now?
I have a couple of free tools as well that I use all the time, depending on the computer I'm at or just if I'm on the go. The first one is Snipping Tool, and that's inside of Windows. It's a default kind of way of taking a screenshot. It's a really useful tool for grabbing something and throwing it on my board or just kind of getting it from the internet or from somewhere else and just quickly having it without having to load up anything else. It's just built right in, very easy. Another tool that I use a lot that's totally free is called Handbrake. And basically Handbrake allows you to put in a video file and compress down the size. So I can take like 160 megabyte screen recording I did and compress it down to like 5 megabytes. It's just a very nice tool to be able to get things out quickly and easily, and also not have your students worry about sizes and those type of things. So I love that tool for that purpose. Another free tool that I use constantly is Google Keep. It allows me to keep track of when I need to do things or ideas that I have or things that are mentioned in class. I can keep track of all of them. And then at the end of the day, I can go back and organize them and figure out exactly what I'm doing.
Nate, I love those recommendations. I'm a big fan of Handbrake, which people can find at handbrake.fr, and that's B-R-A-K-E, hand, H-A-N. Let me spell it the right way, everybody. HANDBRAKE.fr. I used this back in the day to digitize DVDs because I used to own DVDs. So I digitized my DVD collection, and then I was able to, sell off my DVDs, 15 years ago. So Handbrake is definitely cool for ripping your own content. It's also great for, again, like you said, compressing video and making it smaller, and that it's just super powerful. And who doesn't love Google Keep? And the snipping tool in Windows, I'll actually throw out one that I didn't even plan for. In Windows, I use a tool called, as I mouse over it, called PicPick, and that's PICPICK, which is basically when you hit print screen on a keyboard and it does a screen grab of your screen in Windows. PicPick it's like Paint on steroids, and it opens automatically when I hit the print screen button on my keyboard. So there is a bonus recommendation. Now, since I just said I'm just throwing this in, let's go play the game of did future Chris remember to put a link to PicPick in the show notes out at chrisnessy.com/147. If I did, great. If I didn't, please call me out on it. So I go put a link to PicPick in the show notes. Next up, we have a recent guest of Podcast PD, and that is Mr. Mike Brilla. He was on episode 62 of Podcast PD with Stacy and AJ and myself. But Mike, what would you like to talk about?
Hey, Chris and the House of EdTech clan. Mike Brilla. I'm a teacher on special assignment for technology integration in the Owen J. Roberts School District, about 40 miles west of Philadelphia. But for the past 15 years, I've been an 8th grade social studies teacher, and my recommendation is the Night Lab. That's Night, K-N-I-G-H-T, kind of like if you're old enough to remember Knight Rider. It's Night Lab. It's from Northwestern University, and from their website, they talk about it's a lab of community of designers, developers, students, and educators working on experiments designed to push journalism into new spaces. And it is an amazing way to get your students working on digital storytelling. There are a whole host of projects you can use. The two that I've used quite often with my students with rave reviews have been Story Map, where students can kind of create their own tour. Looks a little bit like PowerPoint or Google Slides. And then Timeline, which is a phenomenal way to bring timelines to life using Google Sheets. And it's pretty simple to use, and it takes away that fear of Google Sheets. So my suggestion, especially if you're a social studies teacher or anybody involved in bringing storytelling to life, you have to check out Night Lab from Northwestern University.
Nice. That is awesome, Mike. And as soon as you had sent me this recommendation a couple of weeks ago, I did go and check out the website, and this is really cool. So definitely, if everything Mike just said is relevant to you, go click on the link to nightlab.northwestern.edu over in the show notes, chrisnessy.com/147. Next up, we have my main man, JP Presavento. It was so cool to meet JP this year. He was also on Podcast PD. He's an awesome supporter, big time friend of the House of EdTech podcast. And let's hear what JP's got, because he doesn't have a specific recommendation. So he's got a tip and a mindset that you might want to consider going into 2020. Take it away, JP.
Hello, House of EdTech podcast. This is JP Presavento checking in for the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown. You can connect with me on social media at JPPrez. That's at JPPREZZ. You can also hear me on a couple of podcasts, my own show, The Bits and Bytes of Education, and a little group show that I have called the EdTech Pod Squad. My entry for the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown is the most powerful, transformational app available to our students on their mobile devices. That's right. Today, I want to talk about the camera app and how we can utilize this built-in powerful app to give our students an opportunity to explain and reflect on their learning. We're going to look at a little example of a first grade math assignment today. Oftentimes in our early elementary math classes, we'll have students who are doing things like building with base 10 blocks or developing number patterns and number sentences with different manipulatives. It's great that our kids are able to do that, but in order to increase the rigor of these activities, what if we gave our students the opportunity to explain what they made and their thinking behind it by recording a short video talking through their thinking, or giving them an opportunity to snap a picture and annotate on that picture to explain what they were doing. Now to break that down just a little bit. Maybe my own personal kiddo, my second grader Juliana, is building with some base 10 blocks, and she builds her blocks, then she snaps a picture with the iPad in her classroom. Once she pulls up her picture, built into that Photos app is a tool called Markup that will allow her to write on her picture. She can open up Markup and explain why she built her stacks the way she did. That Markup tool is available both on iOS and Android right inside the Photos app. So it's a built-in experience for our kids to explain their thinking and explain their math work. The other way, outside of using a still photo and markup that we can explain our thinking, is to just pop that camera over to video, record a little video of of the work, and then have the student narrate what they did and narrate their thinking. This is very similar to utilizing Seesaw to explain thinking, and you can even do this work from the built-in tools on your iPad or Android device and then upload it to Seesaw or upload it to Google Classroom for the teacher to review. So there you have it, my entry to the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown, using your device's built-in camera to explain your thinking. Chris, thanks for another great year of the House of EdTech, and I can't wait to hear more from you in 2020.
Thanks a lot, JP. I really appreciate you taking time. And I know you're doing some amazing things where you are right now. And there'll be links to JP's podcast in the show notes. So make sure you go and connect with JP, check out his content. He's a really good guy, and I appreciate everything he does for the House of EdTech podcast. Next up, our 14th recommendation comes from me, and I want to talk quickly about quill.org. That's Quill.org. Quill.org is a free tool that is designed to help K-12 students develop their writing skills by providing activities and feedback as they progress through a variety of activities. Quill.org offers a variety of learning opportunities from practice to lessons to diagnostics to grammar, and even proofreading is now available. 2.3 million students have written 288 million sentences on Quill. Best of all, it's a completely free tool. So if your students are struggling with writing, whether it's all of them, one of them, some of them, maybe Quill.org will help your students improve their writing in the areas of grammar and get some proofreading and get some activities and resources to help improve their writing. Next up, we have Stella Pollard once again. So Stella, what is your third recommendation?
Hey, Chris and House of EdTech listeners. It is Stella Pollard once again with another House of EdTech recommendation. In this recommendation, I wanted to share Tall Tweets. It's talltweets.com. And don't worry, this is not something that's going to require you to use Twitter in your classroom, but you can if you want. You can tweet them. But Tall Tweets allows for users to take any Google Slides presentation and turn it into a GIF. It does all of the magic for you, the students or yourself. You just have to create the Google Slides presentation. I love this for stop motion animation because it's super simple, just to duplicate a slide and move things around just a little bit, and then to have a perfect stop motion animation. I also love this for math. As students are working out a problem on paper, they can go to Insert on the menu and then select Image and then select Camera. And in between each step, they can take a picture. Then they can use highlighters or different colors in order to show the number of steps that they did. I think that this is useful because if a student messes up, the teachers can then just watch their gifts and address any misconceptions that they see. The gifts can be downloaded and then submitted to the teacher through Google Classroom or by email. The gifts can also be smashed with something like Flipgrid or Padlet, and students can leave feedback for one another or watch a peer's gift to learn. I think it's just got a powerful tool, and it's just something that's super simple to use, and I think teachers and students both will love it. Thanks.
No, Stella, again, thanks all to you, and definitely people, you need to go check out talltweets.com. Next up, we have a contribution from Lee Tucker. Take it away, Lee.
Hey, Chris. My name is Lee Tucker. I teach English at Villa Rica High School in Villa Rica, Georgia. I'm on Twitter at Comic Socks, and just a quick app for your app Smackdown. My biggest 2019 app that has been a game changer for me has been the Edgy app, EDJI. It allows students to collaboratively annotate a text. As an English teacher, that has just been incredibly helpful for me because I can see what all of them are doing, and then they can see what each other is marking. And it helps them to kind of learn what to pay attention to. So Edgy has been my app of the year.
Thank you for sharing that, Lee, and definitely connect with Lee on Twitter. He is at Comic Socks, and that's COMICSOCKS. And I've heard of Edgy, so Lee, you have inspired me to actually go and really take a look at it. So thank you, Lee, and thank you for submitting to this year's House of EdTech Smackdown. Next up, we have fellow New Jersey educator and friend of the podcast, Eric Geis. And congratulations, Eric. Eric is now Dr. Geis. So take it away, Dr. Geis.
Hello, Mr. Nessie, and all the House of EdTech listeners. This is Eric Geis, co-host of Got Tech, the podcast. The app that I'd like to recommend for the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown is called Trello. Trello is an EdTech tool that allows you to get organized whether you are working on a to-do list for yourself or collaborating with a group. Create a list similar to a to-do list, but enhance it with Trello by adding descriptions, notes, and resources. You can also collaborate with several members of a group by creating a board, which is several lists in one area. Use Trello on your laptop or phone to stay productive. Thanks for considering Got Tech the podcast recommendation of Trello for the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown.
No, Eric, the thanks goes all to you. Congratulations on your doctorate, and congratulations on the success and growth of your podcast, which I will, of course, link to in the show notes for this episode out at chrisnessie.com/147. Next up, my pal to the north. He made an appearance a couple of times in 2019 on the House of EdTech, and that is Mr. Brian Carpenter. Take it away, Brian.
Good morning, Chris and House of EdTech. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas as we are at the Christmas season here with the Smackdown. My recommendation for the Smackdown is Adobe Spark, a series of 3 different web apps that do 3 similar but different things. Adobe Spark Post is great for posting graphics with annotated pictures. You can put pictures and icons and making graphics for social media. I do that every day on my Twitter account as I record my walks and podcasts that I'm listening to. The second one is Adobe Spark Video, which is fantastic as a simple video editor. I've got my grade 3 students working on making rock videos. That's about rocks and the rock cycle, and they can do it, and it's fantastic in a Chrome browser. Devices as well. That's Apple devices. Unfortunately, it's not available for Android yet. And finally, Adobe Spark Pages, which is the third in the series, which is the student's ability to make a web page looking page that has various types of content from video to pictures and buttons and links they can use. So that's my recommendation, and I love it. So shout out to Monica Burns, Dr. Monica Burns, who has lots of resources on her Class Tips website, and I think it's Class Tips. Not sure. Okay, anyhow, so that's a shout out to Monica Burns. So thanks so much. Happy Christmas.
No problem, Brian. And Monica's website is classtechtips.com. I'll link to that in the show notes. Thank you for submitting your recommendation. Yeah, Adobe Spark is a wonderful tool. I have my high school students use it. I have my Rutgers students use it in one course for their final project as an option to create content using the web page tool. So that is super fun, and you can't get enough Adobe Spark. Speaking of somebody you can't get enough of, because he has contributed to every House of EdTech Smackdown since its inception, and that is my good friend and super friend of the podcast, Derek Larson. And Derek has the record for most submissions to previous Smackdowns, and this year, Derek has the record for the longest submission. So what I'm about to play from Derek Larson is a few minutes, which is wonderful, and I appreciate him taking the time to not only recommend some tools, but also recommend some tips and some strategies. So without further ado, take it away, Derek Larson.
Hi, this is Derek Larson, a teacher librarian in Southern Utah. You can find me online at edtechbabble.net or on Twitter at Lars3EB. Chris, congratulations on completing 6 years of the House of EdTech podcast. One of the best out there, one of my all-time favorites. Thanks for all you do, and please continue sharing. Here's to many, many more years of the podcast. A couple of tips for this year's App Smackdown. My district is a G Suite district, so we use all the Google tools, and I found a couple of tips that help me to be more productive in Gmail. First off, templates. If you find that you're using the same email over and over and you're writing something very similar, spend some time, write a good email, and save it as a template. Then you can pull that out and you can just modify it as necessary. You do have to enable templates by going into the advanced settings on Gmail, but once you've done that, you can do all kinds of great tools with this. What I use this mostly for is every week I send out a schedule for who's coming to the library next week. You talk about what we covered in the library previous week, what we're going to cover the next week, and who's coming. Super easy. It takes about a minute or two to send out an email, whereas it was taking before 10 plus. The next feature is a schedule send. Next to the send button in Gmail, there's a little triangle. If you click on that triangle, it gives you the schedule send option. When you click on that, it gives you 3 different times, so that email can be sent out 3 preset times, or you can select your own time, which means that you can work when you feel the most productive or when you have time and send it out when you want it sent out. So people don't necessarily know if you're working on the weekend or in the evening, but they know they're going to get it when you want them to get it. Great tool. The next thing I want to talk about is with your Google Calendar. Sometimes you want your Google Calendars to show up on your personal devices, whether it's your work calendar or whatnot. That doesn't always work that way for some reason with iOS. Sometimes the calendars don't sync over. So I found the Google Calendar sync settings, which really help to get this done. If you go to calendar.google.com/calendar/sync select, you're able to see all of the Google Calendars that you have in your application, in your account. You can click on each one you want, and when you hit save, this will go over, and when you refresh your calendars on your Apple devices or any other device that supports CalDAV settings, you should have those calendars all showing up. This has saved my new administrators this year, as well as any of the new teachers that have not been able to make this work. And I feel very happy that I've been able to find this. So it was not easy to find. So copy that URL down and use that as you need it. The third thing I want to talk about, or the fourth thing, is the Shortcuts iOS app. This is an app that lets you use simple programming to automate actions on your iOS devices. It uses a drag and drop system, which makes it easier to understand. When you go into Shortcuts, there's a gallery with some pre-made shortcuts that some of them are created custom for you based on what you do with your phone or your device. And some of them are strictly, you can kind of just go with what you need. I love one that's called HoET147. I push a button, it finds my GPS location, and creates a text message to my wife and says, I'm at this address, I should be home at this time. Very nice. My favorite one, though, is one I created called Your Prints Are Done. With this, I can push one button and select from a menu that I've created of different things we do in the library. In my library, we copy, laminate, and do a lot of other projects for the teachers and the faculty and staff in my building. So I can go through, I can click this, find the item, and then search through my address book, and it will send an email to them. Again, the email is already populated, makes it very, very nice and very, very quick, so the teachers know when things are done. Final item I want to talk about is actually an app called Rooster Money. If you go to roostermoney.com, you can learn more about it. But basically, it's a way to help track allowance and teach financial education for your children. Now, I use this with my kids. My wife and I just started, and we really love it. It lets us track money that our kids have in a digital bank account that we've created for them. Basically, it's not really an account, it's just something that we have, so we know. So when they go to the store, they say, "Oh, I really want to buy this thing." We can look up and say, "Well, you have this much money. Do you want to spend it?" And if they do, they can make that choice. Helps them to learn saving, spending, setting goals, things they want to give for charity. It's awesome. We really, really love it. So this app is available for Apple, Android, and Amazon products. It is free, but there is a paid tier if you'd like to use it. We haven't had to use it yet. So if you wanted to use allowances, you would probably need to use the paid app. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoy some of these tips. Chris, again, congratulations on completing year 6 of the House of EdTech podcast. Here's to many, many more years. Thanks.
Thank you, Derek. I really appreciate you, as always, taking time and putting together a great recording for me to use here in this episode. You shared some great tips, and I have showed Rooster Money to the missus, and we are thinking about maybe we can use that with the Miles and the Colton. So thank you so much for sharing that. And that's what I love about what Derek shares here on the House of EdTech is he'll bring you stuff you can use in school, but he's always good for something you can use in life, which I really appreciate because I'm more than a podcaster and a teacher. You know, I do that husband and father thing. And there you go. Next up, we are going back to Stella Pollard. Take it away, Stella.
Hey, Chris and House of EdTech listeners. It's Stella Pollard with another EdTech recommendation.
Wait a second before I get to Stella, and I'm going to leave this in here. When you're done with this episode, everybody, go and bother Derek Larson on Twitter at Lars3EB, LARS, the number 3 EB. Derek, I'm putting you on the spot here to everybody who listens to this podcast. I want you to go and bother Derek online because I've been talking with Derek for probably since I started this podcast about his own interest in starting his own podcast. And he's got a bunch of great ideas for podcasts that should exist, but do not exist. He's got the gear. We just need Derek to hit record. So I want you to tag Derek Larson on Twitter at Lars3EB with hashtag #JustHitREC, just hit record. And let's encourage Derek to put his voice out there, not just once a year on this podcast, but to start his own podcast. That's my PSA. Go bother Derek Larson to start a podcast. I'm sorry for interrupting. Stella, start again.
Hey, Chris and House of EdTech listeners. It's Stella Pollard with another EdTech recommendation. This recommendation is for science teachers. If you are using the Next Generation Science Standards or NGSS, you need to check out wonderofscience.com. Wonder of Science offers phenomenal videos, gifts, articles, graphic organizers, lab ideas, assessments, and so much more that are perfectly aligned directly to the NGSS standards. I can get lost in there for days. It is so amazing. It offers things for classes K through 12, and it's all completely free. If you teach science or have science teacher friends, please tell them to check it out.
Thank you, Stella. Definitely worth checking out, and I will share this with sciencey people that I know, so thank you for sharing that. Next up, we have another recommendation from me, and this one is called Wizer.me, WIZER.me. Wizer.me allows you to build beautiful, engaging online worksheets. Now, slow down before you go off and tell people on Twitter that I'm talking about online worksheets. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. This allows you to make engaging online content. where you can add video, audio, images, and a variety of question types, all wrapped in a beautiful, engaging, and easy-to-use app. It's one click to share with students via Google Classroom or just about any other learning management system. You can save time with automatic checking and grading, or you can review one by one to give more personal feedback. You can browse the wiser collection of free digital learning resources created by their community of teachers. So I recently came across this, and I thought it would be valuable to share if you're looking for some dynamic digital content rather than doing traditional worksheets. This might be a way to sometimes engage your students using Chromebooks or laptops or tablets, and also connect it to your learning management system. Again, you can connect to Google Classroom, and it's called wizer.me, wizer.me. Next up, we have our next recommendation from Nate Nagel. Take it away, buddy.
And then the final two tools that I really use a lot. One is Explain Everything, which basically allows you to write on, I use it on my iPad, but I can write down things, record it, do pretty much everything I want to do as far as an explainer video goes. And it captures it and does a great job and exports it right on my iPad. And I never have to do anything with a computer. It's a fantastic tool. I can bring in websites. I can bring in pictures. I can really do whatever I need to do and have it captured. It really does allow you, as the name says, to explain everything. And then my final one is kind of a weird one, but it's Todoist. And basically it's a take on a to-do kind of app. It allows you to set categories. It goes through and does like different items that you want to do. And basically this allows me to just kind of make sure I'm doing the basic things I need to. Like every Friday I have a reminder set up on Todoist to tell me to clear out my mailbox. So it allows me to do that. Or it allows me to go through and make sure I finish up writing the IEP or 504, whatever I need to do. It allows me to go through and kind of make sure I have everything set up, ready to go. And it just allows my brain to offload some of the work that I would normally have to do to remember those things. I can put it in there as a weekly, daily, hourly reminder, and it will pop up on my app, on my smartwatch, on my phone, wherever I need it to be. It's everywhere, and it's totally free, and I love it.
I love it too, Nate, because free is my favorite four-letter F word. Now we have one more from Nate, but before we hear Nate's last recommendation, let's turn it over to the host of the Undercaffeinated podcast, Miss Erin Kiger. Take it away, Erin.
I would say that what I loved most about educational technology in 2019 is less of a specific tool, although I will say that Flipgrid is one of my current favorites because it's easy to use for teachers and for students. But I'm focusing less on the tool and more on the purpose. And the thing is that these educational technology companies, the tools, the people that are creating these, they're understanding the need for a pedagogical reason for teachers to use these tools. It's not just about, hey, this is really cool. Now they are actually working with teachers to gear things towards how can we enhance the student's learning experience with this tool. And I think that is the most powerful thing that I've seen. So thanks for letting me share. This is Erin from the Undercaffeinated podcast.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate you sharing that. And, you know, people are loving Flipgrid, but I love what you share about focusing on, you know, what you want to do and not so much specific tools. Whenever I'm on other podcasts and people say, oh, you know, House of EdTech guy, recommend tools that, you know, you love, that my go-to is, you know, there's so many tools out there. You know, there are so many tools we've talked about here in this episode, and I recommend at least one in every episode that I release. But it's about finding the right tool for the right job and adding things to your toolbox. So thank you, Erin. Connect with Erin on Twitter at EBGTech, and also check out the Undercaffeinated podcast, which I was a guest on earlier in this school year, late in 2019. Next up, we have our last recommendation from Nate Nagel. What do you got, bud?
Hey, Chris, this is Nate, and this is something totally different, not really related to EdTech or anything like that. I was recently at a retreat not that long ago, and the theme of the retreat was worthy rivals, people who make you better or make you want to do better. And I just want to throw this out as a shout out to you that I view you as one of my worthy rivals, somebody who makes me want to be better at what I do. I appreciate all the content, all the time and care that you put into not only your podcast, but into the other shows you manage and produce, into your website. Basically, you just do a great job with everything, and I really appreciate it. I know you don't get a lot of feedback all the time with things, and sometimes things feel like they fall on deaf ears. But I do want you to know that I really do appreciate and care about what you do. And I can guarantee you that you've made my life and many other educators' lives better by the content and time that you put into what you do. So thank you for being my worthy rival. Thank you for making me want to be better. And thank you again for the time and care that you've put into this community. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Nate, I got to tell you, man, that your message really, it hits me. Because, you're right. I don't get the amount of feedback that I would crave. And, there was a point, leading up to this episode where I was really nervous about, am I going to get enough submissions, or am I going to get any submissions? And, here we are, 5 from me and, 21 from a combined group of some great people. I create this podcast, as I've always said, for me, and I share it with people like you and, you who is listening. And I'll be honest, if nobody listened and my downloads were 0, I would still do it, because this gives me an opportunity to put my thoughts out there. And it's a way that I can have conversations with people who I want to have conversations with and learn from. So I am audience member 0, kind of like patient 0. And, to hear your kind words and, initially when I heard it, I'm like, worthy rival? Is he insulting me? And then obviously I realized that it wasn't, and, we're not enemies, or anything like that. But, it really struck that chord with me that, I'm a pusher, and that's always been my word. No matter what I say about one word, fill in the year, I'm a pusher, and I want people to step out of their comfort zones and try new things and not be afraid, because as I've always said, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. Most things in life aren't and don't have to be difficult. We just have to be willing to try. And sometimes we're going to fail. And more often than not, we're going to learn something and we'll get better. And to hear you say that I have pushed you, I appreciate that. And, you have pushed me. That's why you were a guest on the show and have shared all the wonderful things that you have shared, with the audience and the community. So I really appreciate you. And I'm going to keep doing what I do. And I know that while there are people who I will never hear from, who will never email or tweet or leave feedback, I know you're listening. And I appreciate you, even if I never hear from you or know who you are. But if you decide to let me know who you are, that would be wonderful too. So I appreciate that, Nate. And let's do my last recommendation before I get all, teary-eyed here on the last episode of the year. And my last one is ParlayIdeas.com. Now, what does this do? Parlay puts your students and their unique perspectives at the heart of learning and gives you the data that you need to help them grow. So what does it do? You get a discussion prompt, and you can browse the Parlay universe, create your own topic, or ask their team to create a custom discussion prompt just for your class. 2, personal response. Each student views the materials provided and submits a unique response to a discussion prompt. 3, peer feedback. Students join the discussion, provide constructive peer feedback, and build on each other's ideas. Then you have number 4, a live discussion, where your students can delve deeper and build verbal communication skills in a structured and equitable Socratic seminar. So Parlay Ideas is a great Socratic seminar tool. It also provides you as the teacher with data analytics. You can review engagement data with the class, and you can reflect on how to improve discussions in the future. And of course, finally, you can also provide teacher feedback, where you can provide personalized feedback to each student, and Parlay makes some automated suggestions. This one is a paid thing, so you can, for free, you can get 6 free roundtables, 1 custom discussion prompt, and you can also sign in with Google or Microsoft single sign-on, and you can also connect it to Google Classroom. So if you're looking for a way to blend digital and face-to-face discussions, this might be a great tool to get started with that, and you can find it at ParlayIdeas.com, ParlayIdeas.com. LAYIDEAS.com. That's my last recommendation. Now let's do our last two, and let's start with Sam Fessich once again. Sam, what do you got?
Hello, House of EdTech fans. It is Sam Fessich from the EduMagic podcast. I'm back with another cool tech tool. Okay, so the tech tool that I really enjoy is called Immersive Reader, and it's by Microsoft. And what's really cool about it is it really changes the game when it comes to accessibility. You can have text be highlighted. You can have it read aloud. You can do a line focus where it reads one line at a time. You can change the voice. You can change the speed of the reading aloud. You can do highlighting of different parts of speech. There's a picture dictionary. There's a translate feature. And guys, did I mention it's free? It's cross-platform. If you head on over to sfessage.com/Nessie, N-E-S-I, you can see a presentation that I did on it. I hope it knocks your socks off because my socks were knocked off whenever I tried Immersive Reader by Microsoft. It's amazing, and it's a game changer when it comes to accessibility for students in your classroom.
Sam, thank you so much. And as I look down here as I record this, my socks, for some reason, they just flew right off my feet. I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate the work you do with EduMagic. So definitely, you're not the first person, obviously, in this episode to talk about Microsoft's Immersive Reader, so it must be valuable if we have heard about it from two different people. Last but not least, the 27th recommendation on the last House of EdTech Smackdown for the decade. And 27 is unique because 27 is my number. Just to throw it out there, my birthday is April 27th, and 27 has always been my number. Whether I'm playing football, basketball, baseball, always been my jersey number. So if you ever see something with a 27 on it, feel free to send me a picture, or heck, figure out a way to send it to me. I will appreciate it. But speaking of appreciating things, take it away, Stella Pollard. And this one I can say was strategically placed in this position. What do you got, Stella?
Hey, Chris and House of EdTech listeners. It's Stella Pollard from Kentucky calling with my very last House of EdTech recommendation for 2019. So, if you have not been living under a rock, you've probably heard of TikTok. And if you haven't, TikTok is an app that allows for users to easily create videos with catchy background music, sounds, and other effects. And users can look up different hashtags to watch videos. And a lot of TikTok content is really just there for humor, and it doesn't have any place in the classroom whatsoever. And it can be quite inappropriate at times. However, the students really love it. So there are some videos on there that would make great discussions between students for classes like history and language arts, but there's a lot on there for phenomena as well. One of my favorite hashtags to follow on TikTok is hashtag science is cool. Now, some of the videos on this hashtag have obviously been altered, and you can tell that that really didn't happen, but it would be a great discussion for students to discuss whether the phenomena was an actual possibility or not. And then there's some teachers on there that are creating TikToks over lab experiments and other things. If we allowed for students to get on TikTok during the day, I'm sure that they would find a way to go down a rabbit hole. However, if you press down on a video while you're using an app with your thumb, you can save that video to your phone. Then you can upload those videos into a Flipgrid or a Padlet, and students wouldn't be able to see the comment section or other videos other than what you add to whichever one you use. Teachers can also make their own TikToks and put them on a grid. I think that you could have so many rich discussions with your kiddos and really hook them in with engagement by using TikTok if you can find some appropriate videos for your class. Thanks. And thank you, Chris, for doing the House of EdTech recommendations part. This is one of my favorite episodes, but I listen to House of EdTech religiously bi-weekly, and I'm a huge fan. So thanks for everything you do, and I am so proud to be part of this community. Thanks.
Thank you, Stella, and thank you to everybody who I will name in just a second. But as I started this episode, yes, I strategically placed this one because, again, episode 149. So a couple episodes from now, or if we're well into the future, go to episode 149 to hear my thoughts on TikTok in education. And now, before I close out this episode, I do want to thank everybody who participated in this year's Smackdown. So thank you to Tim Needles, Stephanie Howell, Stella Pollard, Sam Fessich, Nate Nagel, Mike Brilla, Lee Tucker, Derek Larson, JP Presavento, Aaron Kiger, Eric Geis, Brian Carpenter, Angela Bine, and AJ Bianco. Thank you to all of you for taking time to submit audio to me for this episode. It wouldn't have been as great without you, and I appreciate everything that you guys have shared. And to check out everything that was shared and get links to everything, go out to chrisnessy.com/147 or go to chrisnessy.com/smackdown2019. Thank you to everybody who participated, and we'll have another Smackdown at the end of 2020. But let's close out 2019. This episode is always a blast to put together, so thank you for checking out this episode. If this was your first episode, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I earned your subscription. And if you're a longtime listener, thanks for coming back every other week to be a part of this anytime, anywhere education technology professional development. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't thank everyone again who contributed to this year's Smackdown. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking time to share. Again, you can get links to everything that was mentioned in this episode at chrisnessy.com/147 or go to chrisnessy.com/smackdown2019. If you have something you want to share or some feedback or some comments about this episode, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback. Now, if you enjoy the podcast and you think that there's value in this episode, go share this episode on social media. Use the hashtag House of EdTech on Twitter or Instagram. Maybe clip your favorite recommendation. If you use Overcast, you can extract, that's the word, you can extract audio from it right inside of Overcast. And there's other tools out there that you can use to share audio from podcasts that you listen to. And I would love to see some activity on the social media. So definitely do that for me and share the podcast that way. You could also, if you're interested, consider becoming an awesome supporter in 2020. I have awesome supporters, so many thanks to Anthony Arnaud of the New Teacher podcast at newteacher.org, Eric Kurtz from Control-Alt-Achieve, Dan Gallagher from gallaghertech.edublogs.org, Carlos Garza, the Mr. G from aced.tech, the podcast. Thanks to Peggy George from Classroom 2.0 Live, the Jen Giffen from Shooks and Giff, the podcast. You can find that at shooksandgiff.com. Jeff Herb from instructionaltechtalk.com, Mike Messner at TeacherMike72 on Twitter, and JP Presavento from the Bits and Bytes of Education podcast. Find his content at jpprez.com. And thank you to Kyle Wilcox at Level Up EdTech on Twitter. This show wouldn't be nearly as great as it is without the support from all of the people I just mentioned. If you want to join this band of awesome people, go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. And that's powered by Patreon, so I would love to welcome you into that. The next episode of the podcast is going to be 148, where again, I'm going to be sharing some great technology you have to try in 2020. That comes your way on January 12th, 2020. Until next time, happy holidays, happy new year. Thanks for learning with me. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.